So let's start. Today we will discuss about data processing. Data processing. What do you understand by data processing? Data processing. Yes. Can you see what is written on the board? Yes. Can you see what is written on the board?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So data processing. What is data processing? Can anyone tell me what is data processing? Yes. What is data processing?
Sir, manipulation of data and making it in more convenient form to read.
Yes. More convenient and meaningful form. We have discussed this earlier. More convenient and in the meaningful form. Okay. So what we do in data processing, we arrange and manipulate data in such a way that it is more meaningful, right? So there are many steps. First step in data processing is editing. What is editing of data? Yes. Can you tell me what is editing of data? Yes. Yes. What is editing of data? We will take steps one by one. What is editing of data?
Sir, making corrections in the data and
Yes,
it is similar.
Yes, many making corrections. There may be some errors. Errors may written. Errors like what type of errors? What types of error may be there? Missing data. Yes. Some entries are left out. Suppose you are filling a questionnaire and make respondents filling the questionnaire, then some entries may left out. Sometimes two or more options are clicked. Two or more options are clicked, right? Sometimes two or more options are clicked. Yes, you can see the board, isn't it? Sometimes two or more options are clicked. Sometimes redundancy is there. You know redundancy? So what is redundancy? Yes? Can anyone tell me what is redundancy?
So duplication of data.
Yes, duplication of data. And what does it do? Why it is harmful? Why we want to avoid it? Yes, why we want to avoid it? Why we want to avoid redundancy? Yes. Yes. Why we avoid redundancy?
Sir, this data is presenting in a systematic and arranged.
Yes. And it takes a lot of space and effort. Redundancy costs us space, computing space, and time, and it causes confusion. So what we do? We yes, someone is here. We review the data. We manipulate it. Actually, data processing is also called data reduction. Very rightly. Data processing is also called data reduction. There is a huge amount of data. Much redundancy is there, much duplicacy is there, much errors are there. We have to review the data, we have to manipulate the data, and we have to keep the data and make the data manageable. So making data manageable is sometimes by removing some of the data, sometimes by arranging some of the data, sometimes by correcting the errors, sometimes erroneous questionnaires have to be left out. So this is the editing of data. Editing of data is very necessary. It makes the data and it leads to data into the meaningful form. So that is the first step in the data processing. First is editing. So that was the editing in brief. And second is the coding. Coding of the data. What is coding of the data? Can anyone tell me? What is coding? Yes, what is coding of the data? Yes. What is coding of the data? Can anyone tell me? What is the coding of the data? Yes. Anyone have any idea about coding? Yes. What is coding of the data? Yes. Perhaps the connection was lost. So it is back. Do you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Second step in data processing is coding of the data. Can anyone tell me what is coding is? What is coding? What do you understand by coding? Yes, what is coding?
So transforming the collected information into some meaningful form.
Meaningful form, and these days we do most of the data input in computers. So we have to digitize the data. We have to convert the data into the form in which it can be digitized and it can be inputted into the computer. And like, what is coding? Coding is like sometimes in SPSS we give codes to the data, like 1 to male and 2 to female. So by coding, one important thing is happening. Yes, can you tell me? We have discussed it in last class. By coding, one is very special thing is we are doing. Yes. In coding, we assign numbers to the variables, to the different variables. We assign numbers to the different 1, 2, 3, it may be 0, or any. And what is being done here? We are somehow changing qualitative data. We are somehow changing qualitative data to quantitative data. Yes. We are somehow changing, at least trying to change qualitative data to quantitative data. Is there any benefit or the bad implication of this process? We are changing the qualitative data into quantitative data. Is there any benefit of this process? Yes. Is there any benefit of this process? Yes. Is there any benefit of this process? Yes or she? Is there any benefit? Is there any benefit of data in the quantitative form? It can be processed quantitatively. The mathematical equations, mathematical projections can work on that, on quantitative data. It cannot work in qualitative data, isn't it? Mathematical computations can be done on quantitative data. So there is a certain benefit. So by coding, we are digitizing the data, making it computer friendly, and we are changing it into quantitative data. On the quantitative data, mathematical computations can be done. So that is the benefit of coding. And some software needs compulsory coding. This coding is assigning numbers to the data. It is digitizing the data, making it in computer friendly form or any other analysis form or processing unit. And we are changing the qualitative data somehow, at least some part of it, we are changing qualitative data to quantitative data. And that is a beneficial thing for the processing. The processing becomes easy on quantitative data. Like we have given the example, we have taken the example that we are assigning 1 to male and 2 to female. Like in SPSS, or we can assign numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, depending on the software or depending on the input device. So we are changing qualitative data into quantitative data. So it is a beneficial thing. Yes. Then the third process is classification of the data. What is classification? We have discussed it earlier. What is classification as per? In general terms, what is classification? Yes. What is classification?
Sir, classification is a kind of assortment.
Assortment, yes, exactly. Assortment. And yes, can you explain it further? Yes?
Yes, sir.
Can you explain it further? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Can you explain it further?
Sir, classification is a kind of assortment based on some features or characteristics of the things.
Yes, and it is classifying data into groups, and it is assortment, you are right. Assortment based on some parameters. We define some
Yes, sir.
parameters and we divide it, classify it into groups and subgroups. So is there any benefit of this exercise? Yes, is there any benefit of some exercise? Is this exercise? Yes,
Yes,
is there,
sir.
Is there any benefit?
Obviously.
Yes.
Of course, sir.
What is the benefit?
It is easy to understand after the classification.
Yes, yes, Abrar, you are right. It is easy to understand, easier to understand, and yes, and it's easy to process.
Yes, sir.
Because our aim is to process the data. And why we process data? Why we process data? Why we are here in processing the data? Yes. Why we are here processing the data? Yes.
Sir.
Yes, Arif. Can you hear me? Burhan, can you hear me? Why we are processing the data? What is the aim of processing the data?
Sir, to summarize and representing the data.
To summarize, but summarization is another step. Any other aim of data processing? Yes, summarization is there, but what is the final aim of data processing? Yes.
It's a collection and manipulating.
Yes,
So to make it
manipulation is the
meaningful.
process. What is the aim? Yes, Burhan.
To make it meaningful, sir.
Yes, to make it meaningful,
Easy to understand.
easy to understand.
Multiplication meaningful.
Yes. Yes, to make it meaningful, to draw conclusions, to draw inferences. We want to draw conclusions and inferences. Why? Why? Someone in the last class answered it beautifully. Yes. Yes. To help in decision making process. That is this ultimate aim of the data processing and data collection and all the things. Decision making, to take decision, to make the data actionable, to take further actions, to take decision what to do and what not to do. Isn't it? So the classification. These days, especially in GIS data, we do all input and processing, almost all input and processing in computers. So sometimes computer automatically classify the data. Level of classification, computer automatically do. Auto classification computer. Sometimes it is very good, sometimes we have to correct it. It's not always good. Sometimes it makes more confusion. So we have to take care of that. So classification of data into different groups and subgroups. That is the third process of data processing. Then it is tabulation. What is tabulation? Tabulation of the data. What is tabulation of the data? Yes. Yes, what is tabulation of the data? Yes.
So arrangement of data in tabular form.
Tabular
Tables.
form. Oh, what is a table?
In row and column.
Rows and columns.
Yes, row and columns. Yes, it is a matrix arrangement of data in rows and columns. Yes, it's a matrix like this. Rows and columns. This is the table. So we make the aim of tabulation is also the to increase the suitability of the data and to make it interpretation friendly and processing friendly. Okay. Sometimes we cross tabulate. Cross tabulation. What is cross tabulation? Have you? Yes. What is cross tabulation? You must have read it in your graduation. What is cross tabulation? Can anyone tell me what is cross tabulation? We sometimes cross tabulate the data. What is cross tabulation? Yes.
Sir, 2D table, sir.
Yes, 2D table, but
In
what we do?
cross-tabulation,
Yes,
we
yes.
sub
Yes. Yes, Ali Anwar? Yes.
sir in cross-tabulation we also sir divide into subgroups and
Yes, it
and
divides into subgroups, but can you give any example? Yes. Can anyone can give any example? Cross tabulation is an important um, concept. You must have read it it was in your syllabus in graduation. Perhaps, if I remember correctly, it was in advanced statistical paper syllabus. Yes. What is cross tabulation? It is very easy. If some perhaps suppose you are a surveyor and you are taking samples. Suppose in your class you are taking sample about opinion of something. Maybe
Sir,
opinion.
two or more tabulation.
Yes, two or more table. But yes, you're right. But what we do
sir,
in cross
in
tabulation?
cross-tabulation relationship between varieties of
Yes,
such as
yes. Can you give any example to make it
sir,
clear?
if we take any survey, then
Yes.
we will also correlate.
Okay, I'm giving you the example. Suppose you are doing a survey of your class, right? You're taking opinion survey. Suppose canteen should be there or not. Is there a need of canteen in the department? Suppose that is one question. So you are taking samples, but you are taking samples and a question arises and you think that we don't have to take opinion only of boys or only of girls. Okay. So we decide that in the sample there should be boys and girls both. This sort of convenience sampling, a quota sampling, because both the opinion of both the groups. So it is the groups in the groups, and we make a table and we make two columns: boys' opinion and girls' opinion. Sometimes we make a pivot table. We are not going into detail. For cross tabulation we make a pivot table in computers. That is a very interesting thing. You don't always need that. So cross tabulation is doing survey and taking the opinion of subgroups, undergroups. So that is cross tabulation. That is a very easy example of boys and girls. There may be other groups also. Sometimes you can think that we have to take opinion of marginalized class also. Or we have to take opinion of elite class also. So that is cross tabulation. Cross tabulation is a very important process. If opinion making is concerned, as opinion making is concerned. And another step, the final step is summarization of data. Before summarizing the data. Why we summarize the data? Yes, why we summarize the data? Yes, why we summarize the data?
Sir, easy and informative manner.
Easy, yes, and any
Informative
other
manner.
reason to summarize the data? Any other
Sir,
reason?
meaning of to summarize the data is to reach the conclusion.
Yes, but what is the need to summarize the data?
To the data to present for a purposeful or meaningful
Yes, yes. Is
project,
there
sir.
any other reason? That is one is the prime reason to summarize the data.
सर डेटा को सिंप्लीफाई करने के
So
लिए
this of course simplify करने के लिए, but yes.
So because we have a large amount of data,
Yes, we have a who was that? I cannot.
large amount of data.
Yes, Ikra. Yes,
So it
Ikra, you're very right. Some we have a huge amount of data. In numerous tables are there, so we summarize the data in some tables so that it is easy to understand, easy to act on. So summarization is
And so informative also.
yes, yes. If there is a huge amount of data, or suppose you are writing an article or a paper, 100 tables you are giving, so it becomes confusing. So you took some main tables, you summarize the data on some criteria, and you make it small. And you present the paper, you write the article, or you write the report. But it doesn't mean that we delete the rest of the data. It is to be kept. It is to be kept for references.